It's finally here! Volibear is getting his rework, thunder is falling from the skies, and this bear is going to terrorize Summoner's Rift. What is up, Team ProGuides, and welcome back to another League of Legends video. If you guys weren't aware already, players voted on champions that needed reworks last year, and Riot has been slowly working on them, getting them out to us as soon as possible. And they've definitely made some progress. Fiddlesticks was one recently, and you guys know how great that rework was. And the next one on the list is Volibear. Riot has released a huge teaser for us, and we've discovered a ton of new information about what's in store for Volibear. Spoiler alert, he looks a lot scarier in his design as well as his gameplay, similar to that Fiddlesticks we saw a couple months ago. He's not going to be the same adorable bear we once knew. Instead, he's going to be a flesh-hungry eating bear. A real big scary bear. Anyway, in this video, we're going to be going over the upcoming Volibear rework and let you guys know what's in store for the future. Also, our challenger analysts are going to give their thoughts on whether or not his kit's going to be OP, so find out soon. And before we get started, for our question of the day, what are your thoughts on Volibear currently? Do you agree with him getting reworked? Do you think he actually needed it over other champions? Or do you think the current iteration is fine as it is? Personally, I think he definitely needed rework. He was pretty one-dimensional, to be honest. I think this is a great rework, and it doesn't hurt that it's a visual rework as well that makes him look really, really scary and cool. Right now, Volibear just doesn't feel very satisfying to play. I think all of you guys can agree with me. He doesn't have many tools to outplay with. He's very predictable, and he's really good in low elo, but the higher you get, he's very easy to predict and outplay. Alright guys, let's get into the video. First up, on a quick side note, as an added bonus to commemorate Volibear's rework, make sure to hop into an ARAM game on Howling Abyss. You'll have a chance to earn an exclusive emote, and you'll be able to see Volibear visiting the map. Trust me, you won't want to miss him. He's pretty big, like really, really, really big. This is definitely a unique, exciting addition Riot has decided to implement into the game. It reminds me of those Fortnite events, something that's very special and very interesting and unique. Great way to get some digital content as well. You can tell they're really trying to hype up this Volibear rework. Go play with some buddies, try and learn that emote because it's probably only for a limited time. Like with any rework, Volibear is set for a bunch of new visual updates as well. His skins are all being touched up, and a new one is being released altogether, and that's the 1000 Pierced Volibear. This one looks very terrifying and depicts Volibear with a new, horrifying twist to his design. I think we all get a kick out of these new scary designs. I'm really happy they took this direction with Volibear because that's what his kit was meant to be in the first place, something really terrifying, inciting fear, but right now he just looks kind of cute. Alright, with that out of the way, let's run through the abilities. Riot has given us footage as well as a bunch of information about what changes they have planned. First up is Volibear's passive. Volibear's passive is going to be the Relentless Storm. It's very fitting considering what it does. Presumably, this is going to be a weaker version of his current ultimate. Volibear's attack and abilities are going to grant him bonus attack speed, and eventually, they'll cause his basic attacks to deal bonus magic damage to nearby enemies. The concept is similar to his current ultimate. Lightning is going to spark from his basic attacks, hitting multiple enemies at once. This seems like a pretty appropriate change. Volibear's ultimate right now isn't really much of an ultimate at all. All you do is press R, and then you get some fancy lightning particles when you basic attack. Okay, when you play against it, it can be somewhat terrifying because you know how much damage it deals, but honestly, it's not very visually appealing. It's not what you would expect from an ultimate ability or an ultimate ability that's supposed to incite fear. When you think of ultimates, you think of high-impact moves that change the course of fights altogether. A Kiana ultimate can shove entire teams into terrain, bursting them down and stunning them, while something like Sylas's ultimate allows him to steal someone else's. These are satisfying, influential abilities that players want to use. And just a basic attack buff is definitely something that should be reassigned to normal abilities or a passive or something like that. So honestly, I talked to a bunch of our challenge analysts. They love this change. While we don't know for certain which role or roles Volibear will fit into, it's safe to assume that he'll likely be played top or in the jungle still. Furthermore, this passive provides AoE damage, meaning that he'll be able to have decent wave clear as well as a decent clear speed. As you guys know, to be a good jungler, you need good clear speed. Luckily, he has that built into his kit, so he's maintained his status as a jungler. It also means that Volibear is going to be the type of champion that ramps up over the course of team fights. During the start of skirmishes, he's going to work to stack up his passive so that he can deal damage to everyone once he's warmed up. Next up is Volibear's Q, Thundering Smash. This ability functions very similarly to Volibear's current Q, Rolling Thunder. When cast, Volibear gains movement speed while running towards opponents. I think we all know how relatable this is because it's very terrifying whenever he runs towards us. The first enemy he hits will be stunned and take some bonus damage as well. Currently, Volibear flips his opponents behind him, so this is a rather minor change. In a lot of cases, this is going to feel like a nerf, as displacing an opponent and flipping them behind you usually means that you'll be able to get more basic attacks off on them. However, there are some advantages to the fact that it's been changed to a stun. For example, it'll be easier for your teammates to follow up. I mean, flipping someone behind you is pretty big, but it can be tough, especially for newer players, to follow up on any crowd control that moves an opponent. By stunning them instead of keeping the opponent still, all your teammates have to do is put their cursor on the stunned enemy and then throw their ability on them, and then you got a great chain CC, and that's a lot easier than trying to throw your ability on a flipped opponent instead. In rare cases, Volibear could also throw his opponents into the fog of war, like into a brush, for example. This would be counterintuitive, and at the very least, a stun would be much more reliable. Finally, there are some champions that you would much rather not throw into your teammates, like a Moo or any Fed tank for that matter. Sometimes you want to use crowd control on a champion that has a ton of hard crowd control, but at the same time you don't want to make it even easier for them to access your backline. Ultimately, this change isn't a hard nerf and is instead just kind of a readjustment. Personally, I like this change. A lot of the analysts agree as well. I want to know what you guys think. Let me know down below. Super interested to hear. Alright, now let's talk about his W, Frenzied Maul. This ability is a little different from Volibear's current W. When cast, Volibear will damage his targeted enemy. This ability will activate on hit effects, and he'll also mark them. Casting this ability again on a marked target will cause it to deal bonus damage and also heal Volibear. It's pretty clear what Volibear's job is during games because of this one precise ability. What Volibear's new W does is it rewards players for sticking onto the same target. Your goal is to run at a single target and continue chasing them down. In my opinion, this is great champion design and great game design. It really sticks to the theme of what Volibear is and what he wants to do in the game. Now, you do have the option to deviate from this strategy, but players are definitely not going to take advantage of the rewarded extra damage you're going to be getting by sticking onto your target for that initial mark. Not only will hitting the same target increase Volibear's damage output, it'll also allow him to survive longer during fights. Depending on the specifics of this ability, this might also mean that it'll be ideal for Volibear players to pay close attention to their target selection. For example, if they have multiple targets near them, they might want to be focusing down other targets with Volibear's basic attacks and other abilities. If they know that there's an immobile champion next to them, they can cast Volibear's W on them and know with certainty that they'll still be in range for a follow-up W as fights play out. It's also going to be a decent zoning tool. Once Volibear marks an enemy, they're more incentivized to run away and keep their distance from Volibear because not only will it deal more damage to them, but he'll also heal if he can land a second W. The fact that this ability also applies on hit effects says a lot about the direction Riot is pushing Volibear. Items like Blade of the Ruined King and Wit's End are going to be much more effective buys because of this, and he'll also be able to apply red buff with his W as well. We'll have to wait and see how much range this ability has, but if its range is longer than a basic attack, this is going to be a huge buff in the early game. Volibear's E is going to be Sky Splitter. The only resemblance it has to its current E is the fact that it's an AoE ability and that it slows. However, the way that it's used is completely different. When cast, Volibear will now summon a bolt of lightning at a location after a brief delay. The shape of this ability is circular, enemies caught in it are damaged and slowed, and if Volibear is also in the area, he'll be granted a shield. The goal of this ability is to give players more to think about in the heat of the moment. Ideally, they'll want to hit enemies while also shielding themselves, but sometimes they'll have to choose between one or the other. This ability will also assist Volibear when he's running away. Throwing this ability out to where you want to retreat will actually grant you a shield, but also zone your opponents off the location where you place it. It's a pretty good tactical retreat strategy. There's a time and place for all of these abilities. This ability in particular also has some range on it, meaning that Volibear doesn't necessarily have to get in melee range to become a threat. However, we're uncertain exactly how far this ability will extend. Most likely, Volibear will still have to get close to his opponents, but at the very least, he won't always have to be on top of his opponents to threaten them. Alright, so we already spent a lot of time talking about Volibear's current ultimate, so let's talk about what it's going to become. Volibear's new ultimate is going to be called Stormbringer. When cast, Volibear will leap towards a target location, enemies caught beneath him will be slowed and also take damage. At the same time, Volibear will gain bonus health and also temporarily disable turrets near his landing location. This ability is going to define Volibear's immense strength at all stages of the game, whether he's laning or jungling. This ability is going to redefine the turret diving meta. As much as you guys want to say you're safe under your turret, that's not the case anymore. If there's a Volibear on the opposing team, you're not safe anywhere. While we might face some potential flashbacks to Akali's W, allowing her to avoid turret damage, remember that this is Volibear's ultimate. It's supposed to feel extremely impactful, and it definitely will be. If he's jungling, no lane is safe from a turret dive post 6. He walks in, disables the turret, and claws his opponents to death. When laning, he can basically just give any jungler a get-out-of-jail-free card. There's definitely going to be so many different ways that this ability can be used. Opponents attempting to freeze waves might suddenly find a Volibear behind them, breaking those freezes from an angle they didn't expect. Other times, Volibear might be able to disable turrets so that the rest of his teammates can take an alternative escape route. There's so many different ways that this ultimate will be used. I personally think it's a great change to Volibear. Homewrecker and Ionic Spark are the two items that have been removed from Summoner's Rift, but it appears that Volibear is a champion that pays homage to those two items. Most of you guys are probably familiar with Homewrecker already. It wasn't removed too long ago. Although unpopular and honestly pretty lackluster, the concept of this item was pretty cool. What did it do? Well, it disabled turrets. Ionic Spark, if you guys play TFT, you'll know about that. It's a giant throwback, dating all the way back to Season 1. Unless you played back then or you played Teamfight Tactics, you probably don't even know about this item. Every 4th basic attack would release Chain Lightning, hitting up to 4 targets. Volibear basically has both of these effects built into his kit, and it's honestly refreshing to see both these items come back from the dead and find their return on Summoner's Rift. Alright guys, that's going to cover our recap of what we know about the Volibear rework. Thank you guys so much for watching. As we continue to get more information from Riot, we will continue to update you guys. If you guys are interested in that type of content, consider subscribing. Let me know what you guys think of this new Volibear rework. Personally, I'm a huge fan. I can't wait to play him. I've been playing a ton of Amumu recently. He's been getting very boring. I need some spice in the jungle right now. I need some spice. The top lane wasn't doing it for me. It was much easier to climb in jungle, and I'm just getting bored out of my mind with Amumu. But if you guys want to climb, you should definitely use Amumu. But anyway, that's it for the video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Good luck in your next few games, and I'll see you on the Rift.